It is Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of CoinMetal. And unfortunately, we did not get our asses kicked at Jiu-Jitsu today, on Wednesday. It was my intention to get there. However, I was dealing with some of that spray foam shit. I was doing some insulation, and I was doing my corners and whatnot, and I got that shit all over my hands, and I could not get it out. I could not get it off of my skin. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to jiu-jitsu like this with this crap all over my hands, be rubbing on my opponents, my partners and shit. No, it's just not going to happen. So what I did do, though, is I ran, and I also did some solo drilling, and did a little bit of rolling around on the ground and a little bit of visualization practice, kind of following a few sequences through, all the way through, from either mount or being mounted to being free from it, Got to do what you can while you have the time. Anyway, what I did do is I took a little bit of my hard-earned money and I dedicated it to filling out my repertoire a little further. And so I do have some additional music today. However, unfortunately, there's something with Amazon, like if you do not specify to download the track on Prime purchases, sometimes it doesn't give you the tracks, and I don't like that, because it makes me feel like I gotta cancel the order and then redo it again to make sure I actually get the downloadable content, so I get to play it when I want to. But in either case, I am going to be getting some more, and some more will be coming as it arrives in the mail, which I'm not terribly impressed with. Fuck you, Amazon. Anyway, I do have some good stuff, though. I did manage to download some of it, and so we will be playing some of that today. And let's see, what are we going to start off with, though? Because I got a lot of good stuff. Well, got some Rollins. And let's see, what else do we get? No, that was old. Oh, well, you will definitely notice the newer stuff if you listen to this on any kind of regular basis. And you will probably see them on the Twitter as I post. But screw it, body count's the one that's sticking out the most, and so here it is. Talk shit, get shot. Here on CoinMetal, First Dance. I hate it when this happens. Every time I add some new shit, this fucking computer goes completely nuts, and it's like, I don't know what you just added to me, man. Well, we're going to try and play something off Manslaughter and see if it actually works. See, it starts like it wants to do it, and then it plays some other fucking random song. It's like, no, fuck you, I don't want to play that. That's weird. Well, hell, what didn't I copy over today that maybe I have actually in here? I'm thinking I got it noticed and then accidentally just dragged it over to another directory. Because it's not where it's supposed to be, man. I'm going to fix it, though. Now, let's see. What's the new good stuff? Let's see if it'll actually play Rollins. I just got some Rollins. And because I'm feeling like a liar right now, that's what it's going to be. No, it's not. Apparently I did screw something up. Huh. That's interesting. Well, maybe it'll play Prong? Yep, it'll play Prong. Do nothing. First Dance. Here on CoinMetal. And that was Ministry with Let's Go. Sorry, I went a little bit long there, but I did manage to straighten out the music issue. And, yeah, I didn't receive any notifications from a bunch of people saying, dude, there's something wrong, you should fix this. So I'm assuming everything is fine. It looks fine on my end, so yeah, I don't have any reason to suspect otherwise, right? Anywho, I do have a bunch of tabs opened, and there are a few of them I was terribly keen on actually covering. And this one here, it's kind of related to us, in that I think this is another one of those cases where some national government is going to apply capital controls, and then they're just going to motivate people to get out of fiat currencies entirely and start doing over-the-counter trading and barter using cryptocurrencies in ways that the government cannot tax. That's just a prediction, but let's go on with it. This is on ZeroHedge.com. Australia bans payments over $10,000, unleashes, quote, mobile strike teams in war on cash. And this was authored today, Wednesday, 5th of May 2018, by Tyler Durden. So no indication of penis, because Tyler Durden is actually a pseudonym in this case, so let's continue. As Australia struggles to maintain its unprecedented 104-quarter-long streak of uninterrupted economic growth, lawmakers are intensifying the country's war on cash, ostensibly part of a crackdown on criminal gangs that are smuggling drugs and/or people into the island nation, and companies that are trying to cheat their taxes. To wit, Australia's government has introduced an economy-wide payment limit of $10,000 for transactions conducted in cash, which according to news.au will help, in the Aussie slang, to keep dishonest tradies and businesses from rorting the system by taking cash in hand. Yeah, okay. From July 1st, 2019, cash payments of more than $10,000 made to businesses for goods and services will be banned as the Turnbull government seeks to crack down on the $50 billion black economy. Good luck with that, dude. The law was purportedly inspired by instances of large purchases, yachts, sports cars, and other luxury items being made in cash and the tax not being reported. Perhaps the most striking element of the proposal is the introduction of, quote, mobile strike teams to catch businesses engaging in the act of conducting an illicit cash transaction. Treasurer Scott Morrison said the Black Economy Standing Task Force will be beefed up to detect people making sneaky cash transactions through a rigorous identification system and mobile strike teams. Dude, if that isn't like planning war against your people, I don't know what the fuck is. Cash provides an easy, anonymous, and largely untraceable mechanism for conducting black economy activity. Yeah, that's why we like it. The response said, quote, cash payments make it easier to underreport income and avoid tax obligations. This allows businesses transacting in cash to undercut competitors and gain a competitive advantage. That's called business, bitch. Get used to it. Meanwhile, Australia's federal law enforcement are setting up a hotline for people to call and dob on their neighbors who are violating the cash payments rule. Wow. A black economy hotline will also be set up to allow people to dob in anyone who may be cheating the system. Quote, cash provides an easy, anonymous, and largely untraceable mechanism for conducting black economy activity, the response said. Cash payments make it easier to underreport income and avoid tax obligations. This allows businesses transacting in cash to undercut competitors and gain competitive advantage. That was just a repeat of what we just had before. Fuckers. and the Australian Taxation Office is stepping up audits and upgrading its data analysis tools to help catch businesses that violate the law. It said the task force has identified examples of, quote, large undocumented cash payments being made for houses, cars, yachts, agricultural crops, and commodities, which contribute to the $50 billion black economy and hurt honest businesses. The Australian Tax Office will also carry out more audits to improve its data and analytics in its effort to curb money laundering and criminal activity. The law is slated to take effect in 2019. After that, transactions involving businesses will need to be routed through checks or electronic means. Read here for Lightning Network hubs! But transactions between individuals and financial institutions, the government will also overhaul how it handles Australian business registers, including possibly imposing more stringent requirements on renewing business operating licenses. Quote, "This will be bad news for criminal gangs, terrorists, and those who are just trying to cheat on their tax to get a discount for letting someone else cheat on their tax. It's not clever, it's not okay, it's a crime." Australian lawmakers have backed the new system, which was introduced by the country's Treasurer Scott Morrison in his annual speech introducing his proposed national budget. In its response, the government said it agreed with or supported the majority of the recommendations, including potentially requiring wages to be paid into bank accounts, effectively outlawing cash-in-hand payments. Workers in the gig economy will also face greater scrutiny. The government said it was encouraging the transition to a digital society. Of course, while the government says its new system is targeted at criminals, we suspect there might be an ulterior motive. Given the rash of foreign investment that has popped up in Australia's housing and asset markets, the government is merely trying to stop a flood of capital from leaving the country, particularly now that rising interest rates in the developed world are making its bonds and currency less attractive by comparison. Well, that would explain why Bitcoin is 14,000 Australian dollars right now. This isn't going to do you any favors, dude. I know it in my heart that there is some plan in place that they're going to force all the transactions to go off chain, and then they're going to be able to manage everything through the fucking hubs, including taxation and all that other bullshit. But I don't think it's going to be that easy. I really don't. And I think in the short and long term, and it's going to get worse as time goes on, that this particular time, with the kind of transactive mediums that we have available to us, that more of the quote-unquote open and clear market will actually transition into the quote-unquote black market. And I know for regulators and those on whose behalf they're acting are kind of scared shitless about this, because they're all looking at one another going, dude, our jobs, the payment for our jobs comes out of those taxes. The payment for the military and all the fun bullshit that we get to pull abroad on other people with our military forces all runs on taxes. Heaven forbid people should have a choice as to whether or not they want to fund wars against themselves. I really think that this age of managed and created and manufactured consent is coming to an end. I really don't think that the next two generations, as they start making their way into management positions, I don't think they're going to tolerate the level of bullshit that we did. I really think that if they're able to carry through far enough into being, wealthy and whatnot, I think that their influence on the way that markets operate is going to radically alter the expectations of these people that have been trying to corral us into these finite systems. I think that the idea of even national economies being able to be retained as they've previously existed it's fucking silly. You wanted a one world government, a one world system, to where people were able to transact, or a global system. Well, you've got it. It's just not under anybody's control. And I think that control, the control structures that do exist, and the means that you have to rein things in, are going to continue to go away. Because much of the mandates that are executed on the people are not actually in their best interests. As a matter of fact, most of what I see when I read through this stuff, it's just management. And when I say management, I mean confining the people who benefit from technology and anything that profits anybody to a tiny group of members, whereas everybody else gets table scraps and bullshit. I think that's the biggest threat that ICOs represent, is because for a long time, and I've argued against ICOs, but after having read Binance's CEO and his perspective on them, I'm kind of getting a different perspective on it, because part of the reason I even do this show is that certain power structures and certain entrenched interests have always kept some bands, just for whatever reason, off the radio. And it wasn't because it was bad music or whatever. It's just for whatever reason they thought it was going to have a limited appeal, and so they marketed it as though it would only ever have niche interests. And I've always found that to be a really limited perspective, because I think everybody should like prong, but of course that's my perspective. But very few of their albums actually made it onto the radio. Very few songs of theirs actually made it onto the radio. And I happen to think that that's partly a result of who they chose for management and whatnot, and as far as like managing their distribution. But I think the type of technologies that are available now, they make those barriers unnecessary anymore. Now we can just put out the music of everybody all the time, and you can decide whether or not you like it. It's not something where it's going to be limited by geography, and that's been the case ever since the internet has really started to blossom. But I think that effect is going to expand even further. It's something that dawned on me when I was working at Hyundai, and I was learning all this statistical process control business, that statistical process control, if it's as effective as it's billed, and it is pretty effective at least mimicking success, meaning you're running fast enough to stay right ahead of your failures, or at least right ahead of the negative impacts of your failures, that eventually the tendency or necessity to streamline would eventually work its way back up to the upper layers of the echelons. That it wouldn't stop on the production floor, and it wouldn't stop in the management of that production floor. It would eventually move up to the management sectors. It would eventually move up into the infrastructure, the official infrastructure, like the human resources and taxes and liability and compliance and all that other bullshit was going to get streamlined. And I really think that we're on the threshold of that now, that we're starting to give a lot of white collar workers their walking papers. And I think that trend is going to continue to expand as cryptocurrencies start really taking a bigger segment of the economy under their wing. And let's see, I've got a few other articles here, and I really want to get into this one because I don't know how to regard it. I don't know if it's good thing, bad thing. But let's check it out. This is on the Bitcoin News. U.S. West Virginia completes first blockchain-supported state election. And this is authored on May 10th. Holy crap. Again, we're a day ahead. And there is no author on this, so we're going to check and verify if this is actually the full article. Or if we found the source. It's on Cointelegraph. And it's by Anna Alexandra. So, no penis. This is authored 47 minutes ago. U.S. West Virginia completes first blockchain-supported state elections. Let's go for it. Polls closed in West Virginia's primary election on May 8th, completing the first government-run blockchain-supported vote in U.S. history. ETH News reported May 9th, while most voters cast regular ballots, special voters in certain districts voted on a mobile blockchain-based platform. The blockchain-based mobile voting platform, developed by Votes, was only available to a select number of voters. Participants were deployed military members, other citizens eligible to vote absentee under the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, and their spouses and dependents. Participation was further limited to voters registered in 2 West Virginia counties, Harrison and Monongalia. Monongalia, my apologies. State electoral processes and organization are the purview of the Office of the Secretary of State, Mike Queen, Communications Director for West Virginia's Secretary of State, Mark Warner, said, quote, "The Office of the Secretary believes blockchain does provide a heightened level of security on this type of mobile voting app. We are genuinely hoping that this will allow this type of mobile app to be made available in the future, as early perhaps as our general election, to military voters. The audit of the voting exercise will be performed by employees of Votes, and the clerks representing Harrison and Monongalia counties. Other parties will also be invited to give feedback, such as, quote, interest groups here in West Virginia, county clerks from non-participating jurisdictions, the state's governor, and the Board of Public Works. Following the audit, Secretary Warner will decide whether to implement the program statewide in the upcoming general elections in November. Queen predicts that Warner will only move ahead with statewide implementation if auditors of the trial run agree that it is prudent to do so. Queen said that he expects Warner to make a decision by mid-July on whether to expand the program. While Queen expresses hope for the system's use in future elections, some experts remain skeptical regarding electronic voting and Vote's solution in particular. University of South Carolina computer science professor Duncan Buell believes that the facial recognition and fingerprint scanning technologies the company employs to verify voter identities could be vulnerable to hacks. Queen, however, said the the Secretary's office is, quote, very encouraged so far today, and we believe that blockchain-based voting is a real viable option. He added that there are, quote, a lot of other states who are asking about this mobile voting solution and who are also interested in it. The trial run was first announced in March of this year. The decision was undertaken by Secretary Warner, quote, to improve accessibility and enhance confidence in our electoral system. I've said this before and I'll say this again. you can lie to a blockchain. And Accenture has made it possible to have a blockchain and edit it. A mutable blockchain. So, no. The idea of putting my votes on a blockchain does not enhance my confidence that my votes will be executed as I actually voted. You know, that they will count the votes as I made them. You know, I believe humans kind of suck and will try to game any system that they possibly can. And I don't think blockchains are any different than that. You know, I've got a lot of questions about this. And you know, as a matter of fact, let's look into VOATs, because they're spelled VOATZ. Let's dive into them just a little bit here, if I can find anything more about them, because I'm curious how their votes are actually counted, and you know what makes their shit believable. Basically, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, yeah, I don't think that having anything on a quote-unquote blockchain makes it more trustworthy. However, you know, maybe if it's like an open on-chain Bitcoin transaction, okay, I can believe that. However, again, whether or not my vote would be counted as it's actually put on the blockchain is another story entirely. You know, I don't think there's ever been a voting system or there ever will be a voting system that is 100% without flaw or possibility of gaming. I don't think humans are interested in that. I think we're interested in at least having the illusion that we're voting, or that our vote actually will be counted as we make it. And that's why some of us continue to vote. I continue to vote. But that's because I do have hope that, you know, my vote is being counted as I intend it. And eventually enough other people will agree with me that the people I want for president and such will get in. I want to believe that. I haven't seen very much evidence of it. I've seen a lot of evidence that people will go out of their way specifically to spoil the electoral votes of other people. And oh, you didn't vote the right way. I'm gonna change your vote for you. Well, fuck you. Anyway, I want to go ahead and throw back down into some music, and here's some more newer stuff to the repertoire. Anyway, Rollins Band, Liar, here on CoinMetal. And that was Coal Chamber with Big Truck. And so I did actually go through and kind of filter through a few things that I definitely wanted to talk about today. And it always surprises me a little bit that there's several entities just insist on suggesting that they can define for the rest of the world exactly how to use cryptocurrencies, which cryptocurrencies will be used, and how they will individually be used, or at least what will be permissible use for them. And I got this article here. It's on yahoo.com, of all places. A global cryptocurrency is coming, but it is not Bitcoin, says former Trump advisor. And this is by Anthony Cuthbertson of The Independent. This is authored May 9th, 2018. Here we go. There is pressing need for a global cryptocurrency, but it will not be Bitcoin, according to a former advisor to Donald Trump. Technological complications means that Bitcoin is limited, but the technology powering it could become incredibly important, says Gary Cohn. The former chief economic advisor, who resigned from the Trump administration in early March, said in an interview on This Week that Bitcoin's underlying blockchain technology was more interesting than the actual virtual currency. Yeah, because you're an accountant or something like that, because fuck you. You don't understand what you're talking about. As the world's first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin was the first to make use of the blockchain. Actually, it's invented for Bitcoin. An online ledger that serves as a permanent record of all transactions for the digital currency. As Bitcoin adoption grows, several flaws have become apparent with its technology, such as the time it takes for transactions to be recorded and the costs involved. No, actually, that's not actually a problem of Bitcoin. That's a problem of people who have been allowed to manage Bitcoin, at least the code end of it. We should be on 8, if not 32 megabyte blocks, as Bitcoin Cash is doing. Continuing on. The energy required to generate or mine new units of Bitcoin is also incredibly intensive and requires specialist computer hardware. Not necessarily. More than 1,500 cryptocurrencies have been developed since Bitcoin's inception in 2009, each attempting to overcome these issues through new iterations of the blockchain. Quote, I'm not a big believer in Bitcoin. I'm a believer in blockchain technology, Mr. Cohn told CNBC. Quote, I do think we will have a global cryptocurrency at some point where the world understands it and it's not based on mining costs or cost of electricity or things like that. Dude, if it isn't based on mining costs or cost of electricity or things like that, it's not a fucking cryptocurrency. Fuck you. The comments of Mr. Cohn, who has also previously held the role of president of investment bank Goldman Sachs, no wonder, come at a time of continued volatility for Bitcoin. Another reason that analysts give for being unsuitable for use as a global currency. Yeah, in other words, you and I might make money on arbitrage, not just them. His former employer is the first major Wall Street bank to open a Bitcoin trading desk, having succumbed to pressure from clients enthusiastic about the cryptocurrency. The operation, which is set to go live in the coming weeks, will be led by the bank's first ever digital asset trader, Justin Schmidt. Quote, this shouldn't come as a huge surprise to anyone who has been paying attention to cryptocurrencies over the last 18 months, Matthew Newton, an analyst at cryptocurrency retailer eToro, told The Independent when the news broke last week. Quote, any forward-looking financial institution needs to understand this technology and accept its enormous potential. Looking beyond Bitcoin, Mr. Cohn said a system is needed that is able to meet the challenges required for a global cryptocurrency. This guy's a fucking idiot. Quote, it will be more easily understood cryptocurrency. It will probably have some blockchain technology behind it, but it will be much more easily understood how it's created, how it moves, how people can use it. Dude, this guy's a fucking idiot. What is so hard to understand? What is so fucking hard to understand? I don't understand why this guy is confused about how Bitcoin operates. I mean, read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. It's all of 5 pages of actual text. It's got 4 pages worth of diagrams intermixed in to help you understand exactly what's going on. There's no fucking mystery. This guy is a fucking idiot. He lives in the world of idiocracy. You do not have to adhere to his standards of difficulty. I mean, really, if it is that difficult for him to understand, he really has no business managing anything and really should not have been employed at Goldman Sachs. At all. I mean, really, it's not that difficult to understand. In my view, when people talk about it in these terms, it leads me to believe that all they're really trying to do is discourage you from investigating on your own. Because if you look at it and you say, oh, this guy from Goldman Sachs used to be president of Goldman Sachs. Gosh, he used to be financial advisor to Donald Trump. He knows way more about finance than I do. And if he says that Bitcoin is complicated and difficult to understand, I'm not ever going to be able to get my brain around it because he's a superhero by comparison. You need to disabuse yourself of that misperception because this guy is fucking clueless if he does not understand this technology. You can understand this technology. You use more complicated fucking technology on your cell phone all day long. If you can navigate around on your fucking iPhone 10 and you can get it set up to your own personal specs, there is nothing in cryptocurrencies that you cannot understand, except for maybe the cryptography part. But you know how many people that are involved in this space actually really understand that, have a really deep grasp of cryptography and how it applies to cryptocurrencies? You're talking about a very, very teeny tiny, minute fucking number of people. And this asshole is not included among that number of people. Obviously. Meaning, I don't believe he is qualified to define for you exactly what difficulty is. Please, get the fuck in the game. Do some reading. Do some investigation. Do not trust these people who are competitors to Bitcoin to define Bitcoin for you. I mean, really, how many times have you experienced that in life? I mean, I think I first experienced when I was in grade school, and certain kids would tell me that certain kids were good to hang out with and other kids weren't good to hang out with, and if you hung out with that kid, then you were stupid and you will be treated like that kid. Now, was any of it true? No. See, I was the guy that I'd listen to that and I'd be like, really? That guy's an asshole? I'm going to go talk to him and see why you think he's an asshole. And I'd find out, invariably, it was just some fucking social faux pas or something like that, that a first impression was made that didn't actually represent the person. And a forward judgment of reputation was established on that one social faux pas. And, you know, kids are kind of unforgiving when it comes to that because... you know, they're going by the standards that their parents set for them. But again, we're all people and we all make mistakes. And so kids make mistakes too. You know? And I knew that back then. But, you know, this guy is a kid in grade school pointing at that kid over there and saying that kid is a nerd and you shouldn't hang out with him because you're not going to understand anything he's talking about. That's completely untrue. But some people will take this monkey seriously. And that's a real shame. Especially if you aren't, like, if you're hearing my voice, if you're listening to this right now, if you're relying on this guy to define anything for you in finance, I feel sorry for you. Because I think you should have better standards, you know. You got the beer goggles on right now, and you need to be taking a closer look at what they actually say and what they're actually telling you. Because to me, when I'm reading that, some guy's saying that, oh, there's going to be a global cryptocurrency, but it's not going to be Bitcoin. This guy's talking out his butt. There have already been 3,000 global cryptocurrencies. There might only be 1,500 of them that are currently functioning in any way, shape, or form, but there have been several more. And what's defined the success or failure of those coin projects is not anything anybody from Goldman Sachs has said to anybody. It's been how the people running the coin actually respond to the market. And when they meet challenges that they cannot respond to, they get canned. And they get delisted off of exchanges, and miners switch off of their networks and go to others. But that's how it's ruled. It's not ruled by Jerome Powell. It's not ruled by Janet Yellen or the UN or President Trump or any of his analysts. None of these people define for you whether or not you are going to dedicate any kind of hashing power to a project, dedicate any money to a project. And I don't know, I guess they got to say something about it. But when people are depending on them to provide an intelligible, actionable opinion on it, and they're feeding you nothing but disinformation, as I'm telling you now, I think they're doing you a disservice, and you definitely need to be looking beyond them for a valid opinion. Not necessarily mine. I got just as many biases as anybody else, but I do try and keep a little keener eye on what's going on than many in the quote-unquote legacy finance sector. Anyway, I do have this other article, and this one here is near and dear to my heart because, as I've indicated multiple times, I am hopelessly and imprudently invested in this coin. Verge just halved its block reward. Price could rise. And this is on CryptoVest by Miguel Gomez. So yes, penis. Continuing on. After all the tension following the announcement that Verge would cut the rewards it hands out to miners in half today, the cryptocurrency finally achieved its goal. Despite the obvious implications for miners, Verge's halving means that the circulating supply of the coin will grow at half the rate, essentially making it a more scarce resource. If there's anything we've learned from Bitcoin, it's that scarcity has the potential to provide value. The slowdown in coins trickling to miners could also help stabilize the cryptocurrency as it dampens the effect of large miners dumping their supply into the market to cash out on their, quote, winnings. About an hour or so after the announcement by Verge, its value spiked from 7 cents to 7.6 cents immediately after the spike, and its total trading volume nearly doubled from 55 million to 99 million and increased again to 130 million as the price settled down from all the speculative activity. These sorts of events are usually chaotic. Almost predictably, the mining difficulty for Verge went down from its 24-hour average of, let's see, what is that? 224,220,173 to a low of 144,184,681, signaling the possibility that some miners may have given up on the network after they found out they're not getting as many coins as they would have liked. After Verge's partnership with Pornhub, the cryptocurrency saw a steep drop from from 11 cents to 6 cents, giving the impression that its rise to glory is over. However, the little coin that could brushed off the wounds and started a gradual climb to a stable value hovering between 6 and 9 cents. We may expect activity on the market to continue rising as individuals carry hopes that the lowered block reward could provide more stability to their investments. Yeah, whatever. As you might guess, I humbly disagree. I think we're probably going to experience some sort of volatility due to this, just because there's less coins being brought into circulation. You get a certain percentage of people that are hodling the coin. You have a certain percentage of the people that are at least timing their selling, a little bit differently, so they make up that differential on their mining. But yeah, I think if anything, this could translate into some additional volatility, and you may want to keep an eye on it. Anywho, continuing on, I have a few on here, and this one is another one with regard to quote-unquote experts suggesting to you that they somehow have a better grasp, or can have a better grasp on these markets than you do. And here it is. Weiss Ratings calls out Warren Buffett, says cryptocurrencies have 3 levels of significant value. And this is on May 10th, 2018. So, the time travelers again have given this to us. 3 levels of significant value. In response to Buffett's statements that Bitcoin is probably, quote, rat poison squared and creates nothing of value, Weiss noted that, quote, many well-respected investment and financial experts seem to underestimate the tremendous benefits of cryptocurrencies can provide in terms of speed, security, and decentralization. Yeah, but you gotta trust in the public mining part. In a recent press release, Weiss explained that cryptocurrencies not only do provide something of value, but actually have significant value on 3 levels. 1, this is going to surprise a lot of people here, intrinsic value. With many of the advanced cryptocurrencies, investors and users effectively gain a share of a major distributed ledger technology platform with great computing power around the world. Number 2, exchange value. This is already a proven quantity and is bound to grow as cryptocurrencies are more widely used in an expanding range of transactions, both in exchange for traditional currency and for goods and services. Number 3, monetary system. Select cryptocurrencies could become the basis for a new digital monetary system with the potential to be more stable and less subject to manipulation by governments. Though not everyone agrees with Weiss's ratings, the company is well known for its objective analysis on 55,000 institutions and a wide variety of cryptocurrencies, which is certainly more objective than Buffett's harsh bearishness. Thus far, Weiss has had a fairly strong track record when it comes to analyzing cryptocurrencies. The company is notably bullish on Cardano, ADA, NEO, and EOS, all of which have performed exceptionally well over the past few weeks. Stated the company earlier this month, our highest rated cryptocurrencies on fire. Cardano rose from its 2018 low of 14 cents to a recent high of 38 cents. NEO went from $44.62 to a $92.63. EOS has surged from $4.01 to its recent high of $21.13. I have written frequently about these supercoins. They are truly worthy of your investment dollars. At the same time, Weiss recommended avoiding Z Classic, Bitcoin Private, Bitcoin Prime, and any other Bitcoin fork, including the intellectually dishonest Bitcoin Cash. On that last call, I'm just going to have to say you're full of shit. What do you think of Weiss's response to Warren Buffett? Do you agree with the company's cryptocurrency ratings? Let us know in the comments below. And let's see what the comments do say. And there aren't any. Apparently, nobody is keen on it yet. So intrinsic value. That's a surprising one right there. To be seeing anybody actually claiming on that with regard to cryptocurrencies, and especially somebody who's got any kind of reputation in legacy markets. But yeah, I happen to agree with that assessment. Intrinsic value. As long as people are actually using it as a medium of exchange and a store of value, yes, it does have intrinsic value because humans value it. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you know what? That's what makes gold anything more than a shiny rock. Believe it or not, its intrinsic value is entirely defined by humans. Sorry, I had to rehydrate there. But exchange value, that's one I've personally experienced some significant growth on. The biggest problem I think that institutional players have with cryptocurrencies is the fact that up until now, they have been the sole beneficiaries of arbitrage, and I'm not talking about just like they have an inside track on arbitrage. We get the nibbles on the open market, but they get the lion's share. And so when it comes down to it, you and I are now able to enjoy some of that inter-fiat exchange arbitrage because now we have our own mediums with which to perform it. You know, you could be buying Bitcoin from US dollars to Bitcoin and then selling them for yen and then selling the yen later for Bitcoin and then buying back US dollars and making arbitrage on that transition. Now, whether or not it'll actually exceed your your trade fees and any taxation that you might actually experience, that remains to be seen. But that additional layer of arbitrage can work in your advantage. I mean, I've had it work to my advantage a couple times when I've been transitioning around Bitcoin Cash. You know, and I just want to clear something up. I feel that Bitcoin Cash in some aspects is kind of a distraction from Bitcoin. Meaning that I think it provides too much of an out for the pressure to increase the size of the blocks for Bitcoin. Because people can just point at it and say, oh, you want bigger blocks, you can just use Bitcoin Cash. And not worry about whether or not we should ever increase the block size on the Bitcoin blockchain. And so this gives an out. And so the SegWit people, as long as they keep their shit up at the same level they always have, they'll represent a higher and higher percentage of the transactions happening on the Bitcoin network, and they will get their takeover that way. That's just my perspective. I think what really should happen is the miners should just stop supporting variants of Bitcoin that have SegWit in them. Just cut your fucking support for it. You know, if your mining pool operator isn't giving you the choice, get a fucking another mining pool. I mean, really, you got to vote with your dollars here. And we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about your investment of electricity and hardware and bandwidth. You know, I think that's an aspect of Bitcoin that isn't really exercised enough by the miners. I mean, sure, you might risk getting on a chain that gets discontinued and you miss out on the block reward. Oh well. But if enough people agree with you, you will become the dominant chain. And you really got to be doing a lot to push your narrative. Say, hey, this is the reason why we're doing this, and we would really like it if you would join us. If you happen to agree with us, please mine our variant of Bitcoin. Because currently, as we see it, it's being run into a wall. I think that's what's going on myself, but that's just me. But with regard to that, I think Bitcoin Cash also gives us a live example of what really happens when we do on-chain scaling. And I've mentioned this before, but if you think about it, 2,000 transactions per block at 1 megabyte. Now, times that by 32. That's the maximum possible transactions in a block. Not necessarily the number of transactions that will be included in every block, because they weren't even really scraping the ceiling of 8 megabytes as it was. So I see it as a good move because it's going to show us, so what? The network's getting spammed. You can't occupy enough fucking space in a 32 megabyte block for it to do anything but cost you more money. You're not going to make it to where other people won't be able to use Bitcoin Cash. So really, it kind of disincentivizes trying to game it like that, because again, the only people you're really going to be hurting are yourself, and you'll be benefiting everybody on Bitcoin Cash, because people will be looking at the amount of block space that your transactions are occupying and say, gosh, those are a lot of transactions I could be making transaction fees off of. Why don't I mine that? I swear, sometimes people, I get the impression that people just aren't thinking out there. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. Got some Megadeth here for you. Peace Sells here on CoinMetal. And that was Fear Factory with Self-Biased Resistor. And so I did line up several of these articles that I had left, and we'll see exactly how much we get to. But this one I wanted to cover first is on CNBC.com, and it's a little bit more on this whole impression perception kind of thing here. And so here it is, and this is by Stephanie Landsman, so no penis. This is published 12:02 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, May 6, 2018. So a tad old, but we'll cover it anyway. Wall Street's first analyst to cover Bitcoin urges caution. Wall Street's first analyst to cover Bitcoin has a new recommendation for investors. Avoid it. Speaking with CNBC, Data Trek Research co-founder Nicholas Colas cited lackluster fundamentals surrounding what he calls the, quote, FANG stock of the crypto world, FANG references to Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Alphabet's Google, the highest flying and most widely held tech stocks. It has come down quite a long way, and we're getting a lot of people asking, is now the right time to buy? He told CNBC's Trading Nation in an interview. He added, the short answer is no. Bitcoin has rallied to 9,700 from a low around 6,400 in just the past month. Based on Friday's stock market close, last December Bitcoin hit a record price just shy of $20,000. Quote, it was absolutely a bubble based around the futures launch in December and a lot of enthusiasm for the asset, said Colas, who owns a cryptocurrency basket worth around $2,000. He contended fewer people are interested in buying Bitcoin for the first time based on Google search and blockchain wallet growth trending lower. Quote, in terms of Google searches, they are way down from the peaks back in December and January, like 85 to 90%. The second issue is that we're also not seeing a lot of wallet growth, he noted. Quote, growth in wallets is just 2.2% last month. It was 5 to 7% per month all of last year. The key is real-world adoption, and that doesn't just involve ETFs or trading desks, according to Colas. Quote, like any new technology, you need new adopters to come in and make it more valuable, Colas said. Then we have a solid trek higher. Then interest will re-engage. For now, he says, it's a waiting game that could last 3 to 5 years. Do you regret buying Bitcoin? No, not at all. That was the last vote there. And 64% said no on that one. So there you have it. Some institutionals who've dipped their feet into cryptocurrencies and for whatever reason feel slightly spoiled on it. You know, to me, this kind of perspective with regard to Bitcoin is from somebody who doesn't actually use Bitcoin, has never used Bitcoin, except for as a speculative thing. And, you know, when it becomes closer to like survival or your income source or your preferred medium of exchange, this whole narrative changes. And, you know, it's like all these guys that are talking about quote-unquote blockchain. Again, I think they're talking about things that they've got some project in mind that's going to be off-chain and is going to be tucked away in some little corner, and they're going to have their nodes that are operating on it, and they'll be reporting back to the blockchain what they want the blockchain to know. And nothing more. I've speculated several times as to the nature of how that would play out. That they would have several variants of their blockchain running at any one time, and so that they would be able to edit each one individually to get the desired outcome that they have in mind at the beginning. Where they've accumulated the most amount of fees over a duration of time. They've gotten the best exchange rate possible at the time of the transaction, and then over time. And so when they broadcast their transactions out, you know, a month after they've actually happened, it turns out that you owe more money, and now they've got you in the hole because they benefited from the exchange rate at the time and you didn't. And see, I find that to be a plausible future because, again, we do experience that currently in the markets with regular stocks. I mean, do you think the Fed just buys and holds all of the stocks that it buys? And yes, the Federal Reserve, through both their, I think they have their own trading desk. I'm not entirely sure on that. But they trade on the open markets. Do you think that they're not taking some sort of advantage at that point? Because they can make a phone call down to the trading desks on the NASDAQ and on the Dow and say, hey, we want oil to go up. And the market will move to their whim. So now they buy oil and then they call the trading desk and they say, we want oil to go up. Oil goes up, they sell the oil, oil goes back down, they've made the profit, or the vast majority of it. Of course, they probably clue some people in, and that kind of helps the market action too. But more importantly, they're not cluing you in, as in the average trader. You just experience a loss over that period, or not necessarily as high a gain as you would have experienced otherwise, because the dip or the peak has been mildly leveled out by them front running you. And with cryptocurrencies, I'm sure there's some of that going on, but the liquidity pools are narrow enough that, well, those create more pronounced bumps than you would have experienced elsewhere. And of course, I see great potential in cryptocurrencies for the ability of you and others to just simply avoid exchanges where you feel like you are being cheated. Rely on OTC pricing. Say, hey, the average price over the five biggest exchanges on the planet is this. Let's trade at this price. And you can do that. There's nobody that can actually stop you from doing that. I think that's the more important lesson to be learning from cryptocurrencies, is that the arbitrage exchange rates, the arbitrage on exchange rates that would previously only benefit a very tiny fraction of the market at large, are now being enjoyed, shall we say, by the market at large. I think that's probably a really good thing, that over the longer term, enough of the liquidity will get bounced back out to the market at large, and enough of the monetary value will be held in the hands of the public at large that will actually redefine the market itself. And these people that are currently trying to define it for us are going to find themselves further and further behind the fold, because as they pressure us on one end, we've got regulators pressuring us on the other end and causing us to adapt in our behavior in order to ensure that we are the primary beneficiaries of our transactions, and not a bank, and not Warren Buffett or Goldman Sachs or the Federal Reserve. I think that's the greater empowerment with cryptocurrencies, and why I feel so passionately about keeping them within the public sphere from top to bottom. Whether you're talking about developing a coin, or building on top of the coin, or mining the coin, or exchanging the coin, or being the primary beneficiary of an exchange for another coin or currency. But continuing on my articles, and this is more to that point. This one's on investing.com. Robinhood moves into Michigan, brings commission-free Bitcoin and Ethereum trading. Woohoo! This is by CryptoVest, authored May 9th, 2018 at 2:31 p.m. Eastern Time. The Robinhood app, offering zero-fee crypto trading services, has now officially opened up for the state of Michigan after offering commission-free Bitcoin and Ethereum trading to residents of California, Montana, Missouri, and Massachusetts. My apologies, I spent too much time on Long Island. Crypto trading platforms and portals saw unprecedented growth in 2017 when a Bitcoin-led rally saw the cryptocurrency market cap exceeding $800 billion. However, the biggest gainer in the States was reportedly Coinbase, which has been a popular choice due to lack of competition, particularly when it comes to fiat crypto gateways. January of this year, popular online brokerage service Robinhood entered the crypto space with an announcement offering its users a slice of this volatile pie starting February. Quote, "Now in Robinhood, for the first time, consumers will be able to invest in and trade stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptocurrencies all in one place. You don't need to have different apps or to be checking stocks on Robinhood and then logging into some exchange in Asia to trade your cryptocurrencies. It's all consolidated." Robinhood's zero-fee model is particularly attractive for crypto traders and investors since Coinbase charges a pretty penny for buying and selling cryptocurrencies. Another factor working in favor of Robinhood is its existing user base, which can be capitalized on to claim a larger market share. While the app only allows the buying and selling of Bitcoin and Ether, users can track prices for 14 other cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ripple, Ethereum Classic, Monero, Omisco, Lisk, Dogecoin, Stellar, Dash, Qtum, Bitcoin Gold, and Zcash. The app's move into Michigan was officially announced on Twitter. A user on Reddit also confirmed the development. Today, I was given permission to purchase Bitcoin and Ethereum on Robinhood Investments. I'm from Michigan, so I'm sure this is for the whole state. This should push Bitcoin over $10,000. Maybe. I don't know how much influence Michigan itself has on the whole cryptosphere as a whole, but I do believe that over the longer term it will benefit Michigan, most certainly. You know, I'll tell you a little thing I noticed about my interactions with people at the Bitcoin ATM over there in the mall. It seemed like all of the people that I did converse with were very diverse backgrounds as far as their professional level and income level previous to getting into cryptocurrencies. And I think that's one of the most threatening things to some institutionals is that they're looking at the diversity of people involving themselves in this, and they're like, you know, this is no longer just some little white collar game that you know only me and my big buddies over there at Goldman Sachs and Chase Manhattan that I get to rub elbows with over martinis. You know, it's no longer them. It's no longer all my Wall Street buddies. It's mom and pop. Like literally mom and pop. Not even through a mom and pop storefront, but mom and pop themselves. Who are participating in these markets. Who are creating volatility in these markets that I and my friends, if we want to get into these markets, are going to have to deal with. And it's not just on a mom and pop level of scale, it's mom and pops throughout the entire planet. and not just in one nation, all over the planet. I mean, that's a much broader scope of a market than many have actually had. And I think the kind of differences that it can make in the market are such that things that would have actually had demand in certain places, if they were offered there, would receive that demand and not go by the wayside or fall off to bankruptcy due to lack of market exposure. I've seen a lot of products. I know for a fact I have seen many products. I've used many products that would still have a significant demand to this very day if they had been put on par with their competitors. That due to existing relationships with their competitors, that certain venues just wouldn't give any voice to those products. And that's why, like I said, on this show, I play metal that I like, that I never hear anywhere else. And I think one of the responses has been that I've started to hear them in other places. That to me is a bonus. Because, I can go to other places and listen to the music that I like to hear. And the bands that I like are getting greater exposure. So, to me, this is like a triple win, man. What's wrong with it? Let's continue on. Crypto trading platforms and portals saw unprecedented growth in 2017 when a Bitcoin-led rally saw the cryptocurrency market cap exceeding $800 billion. However, the biggest gainer in the States was reportedly Coinbase. Oh yeah, we already covered the entirety of this article, and we don't need to read it anymore. Well, bam. But we're not left without material. Because this one was predictable. I think I might have predicted it myself several times. And we've seen it in other places, so it's kind of natural. But this one's on Investopedia. Global elite is hoarding $10 billion in Bitcoin bunkers. And this is by Shobit Seth. I'm speculating with yes, penis. And this was authored on May 9th, 2018, 9:30 a.m. EDT. Where are the millionaires and billionaires keeping their bitcoins? Safe in underground vaults spread over three different continents, it turns out. Roughly $10 billion worth of bitcoins are safeguarded in non-connected, encrypted computer servers that sit behind security guards, blast doors, and down the corridors of reinforced concrete, according to Bloomberg. Business opportunity in safeguarding cryptocurrency. Unless one can keep the private keys secure, holding Bitcoin is risky as it is prone to theft and hacks if storage is not handled properly. See protecting your Bitcoins against theft and hacks. Argentinian entrepreneur Wences spotted a unique business opportunity in safeguarding the digital holdings of the global elite. His startup, called Zappo, offers unique safe storage vaults for holding clients' cryptocurrencies on dedicated computer servers in underground vaults. These high-security vaults are spread across 3 different continents, including one that operates from a decommissioned Swiss Army bunker. It took a few years for Cesares to build the secure systems, but it was a much more difficult task to convince the millionaires and billionaires that Bitcoin will be the global high-value currency of the future, and they should invest in it. And he is the right man to safeguard it for them, Bloomberg adds. What's behind the secure vaults? The vault's security starts with multi-factor authentication and private key segmentation on computer servers used to hold Bitcoin. They remain non-connected to the internet or any other networks. Secret details like private keys and cryptographic materials are physically stored on offline computers, which too remain completely segregated and never are connected to any kind of networks, including the internet. The vaults are dispersed across secret locations on 3 different continents, and the setup is constantly under surveillance. The locations follow a failover mechanism in case of natural disasters such as earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. It is possible to retrieve cryptocurrency funds from other vault locations in case a particular one goes down. The high level of security comes at the cost of a slight delay in retrieving the Bitcoin. It also takes up to 48 hours for a client to transfer Bitcoin from the vault to the wallet, as an extensive authentication protocol and an advanced security process are followed to ensure the requester's identity is genuine. Funds are transferred from the Zappo vault to a client's Zappo wallet, another product Zappo offers. Along with serving high net worth individuals, Zappo offers storage solutions to corporations. While Bitcoin valuations swing wildly, it is difficult to estimate the total value of Bitcoin held in the vaults. Bloomberg quotes 2 Zappo clients who estimate around 10 billion of Bitcoin are being stored in the secure Zappo vaults. Since Zappo is acting as a custodian for its vault services, it comes under regulatory purview. Its Swiss subsidiary falls under the Financial Services Standard Association that requires it to comply with all the anti-money laundering rules. Zappo has a Delaware-based corporation that is registered with the U.S. Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and is licensed in several U.S. states. Zappo serves its U.S. customers through its corporation, ensuring adherence to all necessary U.S. compliance. Quote, "Everyone who isn't keeping keys themselves is keeping them with Zappo," Bloomberg quotes Ryan Radloff of CoinShares, which has more than $500 million of Bitcoin stored at Zappo. Quote, "You couldn't pay me to keep it with a bank." There you go. And so that just leaves Zappo as a potential weak link in that chain. But it tells you something more. That the quote-unquote global elite aren't just sitting by the wayside and watching all this shit go on. They are invested in it heavily. Which indicates, to me anyway, a faith that it will be going up. But you have to think about it in another term too. At least one entity is holding $500 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, what do you think they might intend to do with that Bitcoin? Do you think maybe at some point or another they might be putting that on some sort of privately owned Lightning Network system? Where they're processing your payments off-chain? Maybe. It'd be kind of hard to compete with them for fees with them putting that much Bitcoin per transaction on the blockchain. Had to rehydrate there. But yeah, so the global elite is actually hoarding Bitcoin, according to this. So whether or not Zappo is actually holding $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, I don't know. I've never done an audit of their books, so I couldn't tell you. But there's just as high a likelihood that they do not. But yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out in the longer term. Maybe their security protocols are significant enough to negate the possibility of the keys being stolen by a third party. But again, that leaves Zappo and any of their subsidiaries or whatever susceptible to possible theft. There are no hands that are secure, but yours are most certainly the best. But that kind of dovetails into my next article here, and this one's on investing.com. Case study: the slow but inevitable conversion of Bitcoin skeptics. And this one was authored on May 9th, 2018 at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. With their meteoric rise and high-profile volatility, it's become impossible for financial moguls, economists, and governments to ignore cryptocurrencies, perhaps most especially Bitcoin. Over the course of the past year, a number of key market players, some of them eminent investors, have voiced concerns about the asset class, criticized the notion of digital currency, and then, eventually, maybe inexorably, come around to some level of conviction on the concept. Some of these investors, though still critical of the alt currency concept, have nonetheless at some point, whether knowingly or unknowingly, invested in firms that provide either direct or indirect exposure of some sort to the crypto environment, often via the blockchain technology underlying the asset. Whatever. Crypto adaptation. The Kubler-Ross model. Swiss psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, author of the groundbreaking book On Death and Dying, theorized that there were 5 stages to the grief cycle before an individual reached acceptance. Her 5-stage model can also be applied to crypto adoption and also helps to define the conversion stages. Ross's model, as applied to cryptocurrency adoption, I'm assuming was the intended word there, tracks as follows: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, missing out on crypto, and finally, grudging acceptance. The emotional position of Bitcoin cynics does seem to shift over a short, though in some cases long, period of time. Below, some notable investors, economists, and government officials who are clearly moving through different stages of the cycle. This past January, George Soros joined a chorus of investors at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, calling Bitcoin a bubble. Nevertheless, by April 2018, it was revealed that his New York-based Soros Fund Management had approved the trading of virtual currencies. That's quite a rapid about-face. Of course, it could also be that Soros had no intention of laying his cards on the table at Davos in order to get in quietly before the prices might jump after it was revealed that he was interested in the burgeoning asset. Jamie Dimon, CEO and chairman of JP Morgan Chase, was even harsher on Bitcoin. In 2017, he pointedly said, quote, It's a fraud. If a JP Morgan trader began trading in Bitcoin, I'd fire them in a second. For two reasons. It's against our rules, and they're stupid. And both are dangerous. However, during an interview with the Fox Business Network this past January, Diamond backpedaled rather vigorously. Quote, I regret making comments saying Bitcoin is a fraud. The blockchain is real. You can have crypto yen and dollars and stuff like that. One reason for his reversal could have something to do with a piece of news just revealed by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Back in October, JP Morgan applied for a patent related to blockchain technology. During his annual shareholders meeting last Saturday, the Oracle of Omaha celebrated investor Warren Buffett, chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, NYSE BRKA, had this to say about Bitcoin. It's probably rat poison squared. It's not the first time he's openly disparaged the cryptocurrency. In October of 2017, Buffett called Bitcoin a bubble and added, quote, people get excited from big price movements and Wall Street accommodates. You can't value Bitcoin because it's not a value-producing asset. Still, whether he wants to openly acknowledge it or not, Buffett is already invested in the technology behind the altcoin Ripple via a number of his bank holdings. In particular, the Bank of New York Mellon, NYSE BK, which are interested in distributed ledger technology for their global payment systems. There remain, of course, a fair number of active crypto skeptics who continue to deny the value investors might derive from the asset class. Respected American economist Nouriel Roubini has been vehement about Bitcoin. In a strongly worded article published by The Guardian in early March, he wrote, quote, it's the mother of all bubbles, and also the biggest bubble in human history if you compare it to, say, the Mississippi bubble, or the tech bubble, or tulip mania, or South Sea bubble. Now it has crashed around 60% compared to the peak of mid-December. It has crashed 30% in the last week and 10% today, and the fundamental value of Bitcoin is zero. He's also dismissed blockchain technology, calling it overhyped. I'd agree there. But Roubini might just be part of a shrinking group. More and more individuals are on the fence now, shifting between stages as they potentially head towards acceptance. For example, former chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, warned, quote, Bitcoin is an attempt to replace fiat currency and evade regulation and government intervention. I don't think it's going to be a success. It's going to succeed exactly because of that, dude. Despite his disdain, Bernanke has admitted he's bullish on blockchain even if he has mixed feelings about Bitcoin, having given both muted praise and criticism for the currency as far back as 2015. Scott Shepper, head of marketing XYO Network, believes that whether they like it or not, as time passes, just about every single investor will have some exposure to cryptocurrencies, whether or not they realized it or publicly decry it. Here's why. When a technology surfaces that solves fundamental problems for consumers, it's inevitable that in the end, consumers vote for adoption, dude, if they can profit or benefit. So it could be we're seeing a gradual conversion Are all these skeptics destined to eventually come around? Absolutely. And if Bitcoin is a bubble, what lessons can investors learn from previous market bubbles such as the dot-com mania that gripped markets in the 1990s? Buffett's dot-com boom, blah blah blah. Shepard points to the way Buffett operated during the dot-com boom. The celebrated investor is famous for focusing on his core competencies, investments in companies whose businesses and products he understands. Companies such as Coca-Cola, Apple, Bank of America, Southwest Airlines, and insurance businesses such as Geico. Quote, during the dot-com boom, Buffett avoided investing in internet companies partly because he's a fundamentalist who doesn't who doesn't use a computer at the office, and largely because he wasn't interested in trying to understand the underlying technology. This caused him to miss out on investing in Google and Amazon, even though he was approached by the founders of both to invest in the companies. At the 2018 Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting last week, Buffett openly admitted his error. I made the wrong decision on Google and Amazon, even though at the time he saw the incredible amounts of money his subsidiary Geico was spending on Google advertising, and even after meeting with the company's founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Buffett ended up passing on the opportunity to invest. He learned his lesson, though. In March, Buffett announced that Berkshire Hathaway had bought 75 million additional shares of Apple for a total holding of 240 million shares, or 5% stake, in the computer and smartphone giant. Shepard believes it will be a similar trajectory for Buffett and cryptocurrencies. Whether he invests in the digital tokens directly or takes a visible stake in companies that have some involvement with blockchain technology, it's simply a matter of time. Indeed, notes Shepard, for any savvy investor, there is no arguing that Buffett has proven he leads the pack in that regard. Investing in this new asset in some way, shape, or form is inevitable. I could not agree more. I think it's inevitable that they're already highly invested in cryptocurrencies. Even by proxy. I would say that Berkshire Hathaway or Buffett himself is invested in MindGeek at some point or another, or one of their subsidiaries. So again, they're invested in Verge because MindGeek's partnered with us, or partnered with Verge, and so the entrenchment into these industries it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's as sure as that the sun will rise for you tomorrow, that these guys will be invested in this space. And so, I'm not at all surprised. And I won't be surprised next year when their involvement in this space is doubled, tripled, quadrupled, tenfolded. I don't know, but it's going to increase, and it's going to increase at an exponentially increasing rate. So, I can say that, but I'm not saying it as a quote-unquote expert, just somebody who has been around long enough to see these guys, as they've been eyeballing it since 2013. That's 5 years for them to figure out exactly which points they want to press and which points they want to promote and what projects they want to invest in. The idea, though, that this is going to slow down, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. The idea that we're going to narrow this all down to one particular class of entities or one particular class of coins, or that we're going to be holding any in specific regard because of the proclamations or determination of some greater entity, such as Berkshire Hathaway or the Federal Reserve itself, I think that kind of power in these markets is only limited to those entities' participation in them. That you and your friends and the vast cryptocurrency communities that have built up, they will have as much, if not more, influence over the direction of these markets as Berkshire Hathaway or the Federal Reserve ever have. That's why I keep trying to enunciate to you guys that you are the market. You are the great arbiters, that you are the invisible hand that moves this thing all around. And you represent a far larger interest in these, a far larger stake in these technologies than even these global economic giants do. Please do yourselves a favor and retain as much of that sovereignty as possible. Do not be trying to give it away to third parties, because invariably all of those third parties can become one entity, one large, global, pre-existing entrenched interest that can slowly or all at once replace us. Now, whether or not we'll actually concede to that, I don't believe that's going to ever be true. That things like OTC trading and whatnot will be phased out. I had read somewhere or heard some interview where the interviewee was correcting a lot of misperceptions about what's going on in China with regard to mining and trading. Is that basically, I guess there were some miners that were outright stealing electricity there in China, and so there was a crackdown on that. But as far as how that what that means for legitimately operating miners, I don't think there's been as big an impact as there's been played up in the Western media. And I think over time we're not going to see as big a transition out of China as some have been predicting, myself included. If anything, I think they'll probably have a greater level of participation as it's more evenly defined for the Chinese people exactly where the government stands with regard to cryptocurrencies. And when they're seeing that their activity isn't being reined in, and they're doing their thing as they've always done, they're going to continue to do it as they always have, if not more so. And it is with that I would like to wrap up this episode. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as what we're going to close it out with, I haven't listened to all of this, so I'm just going to shoot it in the dark. And Civilized by Rollins Band. Last Dance here on CoinMetal. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly appreciate the support. You can find me on Twitter or on the Verge Currency Telegram channel. So until Friday, y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.